Ever since that relapse at 5.5 months, which is nearly 10 years ago, I've never said I've got this. It's been one of my key things around step one is just for today. I can say for today I'm not going to use, but that's all I'll say,
Okay, life can be crazy. You're feeling like you're sinking, just trying to find a meaning. It's time for better thinking, yeah, better thinking. Time to tune in. Let's go.
Welcome to this episode of Better Thinking Podcast. This is part 2 of the 2-part series with Danny Shannon. As you know, Danny is a recovering drug addict, and this particular episode looks at his space of recovery rather than addiction. Fascinating story. Last time we finished up at day 22 and how he had a bust in his journey of recovery. Well, this is the extension of that and the many months to come after that. You'll find out now that he's actually turned his life around and how that's occurred for him. He's now a mentor for others who are going through drug addiction. He's also part of a service that looks after others who are going through drug addiction. Interestingly, he's on the other side of the wall now where he's a service provider or a worker rather than one of the participants in the program. It's a fascinating story. I know you're going to love it. It's just as good as part 1. If you haven't gone out and listened to part 1, make sure you go back and do so because both of these are going to absolutely blow your mind.
Danny, I want to say thank you for returning for part 2. I wasn't quite sure whether we would be able to do this in such a quick time frame, and I know it's been probably about a week now since the first our first chat and today. So just want to welcome you back first of all.
Thank you very much, Nesh. It's a pleasure to be back again, mate.
Just a quick summary to go through what we discussed last time was obviously your story from growing up and moving away and sort of picking up for the first time. All of a sudden it went from in some sense being clean to drinking and using a few other substances, and that sort of gradual increase in frequency, where it was something that you just enjoyed, that you just found there was something quite different, liberating in some sense of a freedom in that space. And we spoke quite a lot about your story and how you've been, I don't know if the right word is battling, but focusing on trying to keep a handle on it, but it getting away over time. And obviously sort of spoke about that a story of having a pretty major fall and off your motorbike and ending up in hospital and everything that went around that with walking yourself out of hospital to go out and use again with a broken or shattered femur and all sorts of things. So
Yes.
and I think most recently we finished off with talking about how many times you've been resuscitated and brought back to life. And maybe we can kind of just pick up on the very, very end of what we were talking about, which is you kind of coming out of your methadone reduction program and having a bit of an epiphany, a spiritual moment where kind of some light bulbs went off, and then some few weeks later, I think it was day 22 from memory, where you picked up again. I think busted is the word that we use. So maybe we can just kind of pick up from there and today also lead into obviously your recovery and your passion. I think we were talking about your passion last time about life in general, but I know that there's also a business that you now run and you help a lot of other people, and I'm really eager and keen to hear more about that as well. So if that's okay, maybe we can roll with that.
Sure. Good on you, Nesh. Thank you. First of all, I just want to mention that you're such a good listener. Let me tell you, in the work I do, I'm helping other people. No one ever bothers to ask how I'm going, So it's actually really nice to talk about that stuff. And it's not really that I need to talk about my past so often, although that is part of the therapeutic process in moving forward, but certainly not in that depth. So you just reminded me then, especially of that resuscitation stuff, being dead on the floor and having paramedics standing over you and pumping you so hard that, I'm bruised for a week. It gives me a bit of a chill too to hear that. And also just touch on, you mentioned, if it was a battle for me, I was constantly battling to stay off the drugs. I guess just to go back on that, I don't think I actually ever really tried, I never really gave it a good, so it was all in. It was just all in from day one. It was almost just like all in until I guess the day I finally did surrender. As you mentioned, day 22 off the methadone. And you got to understand that the methadone is something that I was almost locked to be on for the rest of my life. It's kind of set up that way. Well, maybe it's not set up that way. I don't want to blame anyone, but it's hard to get off it anyway because it's so convenient. You go and, a heroin addict just goes and picks it up from his local chemist. They give him takeaways if he's pretty stable. Takeaways just means he gets to take 2 or 3 doses home with him for the week. So he only needs to visit the chemist once or twice a week. It becomes really easy to get locked into that pattern of, being on the methadone. So it's really lucky to get out of that trap. But I did, as you mentioned, I was day 22 off the methadone, and I've been on it for 13 years, pretty much straight. And for some reason, and I think I mentioned this last week, I kept thinking, see, what the methadone did was it gave you a big tolerance. So I would still continue using heroin throughout my methadone use. And I also really got stuck into the methamphetamines too, which is ice, which is a chronic problem down here in Sydney. I think all over Australia these days. It's the number one reason why people end up in treatment. I think it seems to be, like, I work in a treatment centre and I have now for nearly 8 years, and the number one reason people are coming in is usually due to ice, and they're messed up on a whole nother level than heroin as well. It's a different beginning of their recovery, and it takes longer for people to, to get grounded and start to hear the message of recovery,
Something that I'm really fascinated about, because I've done a little bit of reading, and it comes from a book called Life After Life by Dr. Raymond Moody, who interviewed a lot of people who've had near-death experiences, or if we can call them death experiences.
Yeah.
Do you recall any experience? Sometimes, and I don't want to lead you in any way, but there's kind of recounts of people coming out of their body and being able to see themselves. Sometimes they can see the environment. Sometimes they feel like there's a connection with this kind of afterworld or something. Did you have any experiences, or did it just go black for you and then you woke up? Anything?
Yeah, I know what you're getting at. Look, I wish I had a story for you to answer that, but to be honest, I certainly, being stoned on a lot of methadone and heroin, I've had experiences like that, but I think that's different. That's just stoned.
Okay.
But no, I don't ever recall seeing the light as such. Is what you're sort of talking about. I don't think so. Anyway, it's kind of a bit of a blur, but yeah, my closest thing to that is knowing I was about to die almost, and always putting myself, which is similar, I guess. I would always seem to put myself in a situation where I'd be found or resuscitated and survive. So it's almost down that track. Something in me drove me to walk out the front door, or to walk out of the bathroom at the station, or to walk in front of the ambulance. Something drove me always to stay alive, which is quite a spiritual thing on another level, I guess. But no, nothing like exactly you're asking.
It's just an interest of mine. So
I've heard of that stuff too.
Maybe we can pick up from, I suppose, maybe day 22 or just after day 22.
Yeah. So, look, what happened on that day, I remember it pretty clearly. Actually, it was going back almost 11 years ago now, because I never stayed abstinent from that day. I'm almost 10 years abstinent now. So, but it's going back 11 years ago, and I was still in rehab, and you can imagine they kind of got you pretty closely locked up for the 3 months we're locked up, but you don't get to venture out much, and it just kept bugging me, bugging me. Like, I wonder what it'd be like to use drugs again now that I'm off the methadone. It's just absolute insanity. As I'm saying, I hear the insanity in that, but and don't worry, I'm not unique in this, but it's a big, very common thing.
Yes.
It's because you never really want to, or you're so used to using it. It's weird to be clean and straight, So it bugged me, and I finally got the opportunity to manipulate, or somehow I got up to King's Cross on a day leave by myself, which would have been difficult. I don't know how I pulled that off alone, because normally they send a peer with you, another guy with you, to sort of keep each other accountable. But I picked up and I used cocaine. Actually, I bought cocaine, and as it happens, I got ripped off. Right, this is what happened. So I bought it. Up the cross is always shady, especially when I hadn't been there for a little while and didn't know any contacts. I bought it and compulsively, so probably not very smartly, and anyway, and I used it, and it never worked. Like, I think I got ripped off completely. And what happened, Bart, was it triggered this thing in me that I have to use again. So I quickly, came undone from there. But I remember, and that's a bust anyway. Let's just say, for example, it certainly is to me. You go and get it on, and you get ripped off. Let's just say I got talcum powder or something. Yeah. It's still a bust, because if I got it and I end up going, I throw it in the toilet, I won't have it, that's not a bust. But if I actually take it, and even if I get stoned or not, I consider that a bust, absolutely.
I imagine there's a lot of excitement that comes with the anticipation as well. So even if you don't get the buzz, there's I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes. You'd probably have an excitement that I'm about to go out and score. I've now scored. I'm now going to go to wherever I'm going to go out and use. The anticipation would be, really kind of exciting in and of itself. There'd be a huge buzz from that. I mean, obviously a letdown when nothing happens, but I imagine the buzz up to that point would have been nice.
It's actually a physical feeling, that what you just described, and it literally is a physical feeling. And funny enough, when you mention it, I kind of get a bit of shame about that for some reason. I don't know why. I guess because, I don't know. It makes me feel bad when I hear that. I guess it takes me back. Like, thank God I don't have that physical compulsion anymore like that. But
can you try and describe a little bit about what you mean by shame?
Oh yeah, I wonder what I mean. But straight away, this will come up. I mean, because it's almost like pathetic to have that feeling and then use and get ripped off for one thing. So maybe there's a bit of the shame coming from there. But I think what the shame is this dependence, that this out of control feeling that I never used to be able to have, and I used to seek it every day. Like I seek that. Like, they often say that part of using is the thrill of the getting on, exactly as you described. I don't know if I ever really relate to that. For me, I just liked the stoned, but it certainly was a daily ritual. The first of all, the getting it, getting the money together, which is quite a chore. Obviously, if you're well and truly into it, there's crime and whatever else to get the drugs, and then the anticipation of waiting for the drug dealer to come, so you've got it, and they say they'll be 5 minutes. This is very common, and they're never 5 minutes. So there's that anticipation, and adrenaline rushing, and then there's the, you get it, and me, I was just a pig. Like, I would use it wherever I was, and I've had coppers knocking on the car window while I'm shooting up, in front of them. So they can't stop me unless they smash the window, but it's like I could have driven somewhere safe, but I just couldn't wait. I had to have it, Yeah. So, but yeah, that shame stuff, I'm not sure. I think it's just about like I can almost feel that anticipation of waiting to get on, like you sort of explained, and it just makes me feel horrible that I used to do that to myself. Yeah.
And what happens? What happens? Day 23. You've gone out and
Yeah.
been
Well,
ripped
I'm
off in
kicked
22.
out. I'm kicked out. Right? I'm kicked out of the rehab. Of course, because I didn't come back, because I chased more. As I said before, it kicked off that compulsion anyway, and I was late. I was punted. I was kicked out. So I don't really remember. I remember I got on. Of course, I got stoned. I threw. It's like I threw my whole life away because. And I mean, it makes sense, of course, but I finally get off the methadone and I get this opportunity to be sober for 22 days, like completely free of any drugs or alcohol. And then I throw it away to this stupid idea that I needed to feel the stoned again. But mate, what happened? It escalated pretty quickly. My dad, as I've mentioned before, he's got his wife is from Fiji, right? And they live over there. They've got family over. Anyway, I came up this. There's this thing in our world called a geographical. It's like it's when the addict runs, but takes all his problems with him. So it doesn't matter where you end up in the world. We think we've got this mad idea, and my idea was I'm going to move to Fiji. Because there's no drugs, which there wasn't. It was minimal. Like, there was no heroin that I could get my hands on. It was just some pot. And I thought, that's all right. And anyway, so I've done the geographical to Fiji. So I somehow got my dad to get on board. We got some money together. I packed my shit and I moved to Fiji, like living in Lathala
Wow.
Beach, in Suva, in some shack almost. And here's the thing, but right, this is amazing. Right? I always said to myself, I'm not an alcoholic because I don't really have an alcohol story except for right in the beginning. And this is something a lot of addicts get caught up on, thinking that alcohol isn't a drug and that as long as they stop using the drugs, they can maybe have a drink on the weekend. Well, that's certainly not the case. It's certainly not the case in my. And what happened, I got to Fiji, day one, I'm sitting there and I'm hanging out because I've got a habit again on the heroin, I'm
Sure.
addicted, a physical dependence. And we're drinking. And I was sitting in this big circle with these boys, Fijian boys and a couple of Indian boys. It was cool. It was all right. Because my uncle, he's a shonky. He's the one that lives over in Fiji that was looking after me. Anyway, we were with the boys and they're drinking beer, all right? And they're drinking from this little glass like this. And I remember thinking, like, my need anytime is just to get out of it. A little glass isn't going to cut it, let me tell you that. But then they go around a circle and they have one drink each and then it comes back to you. Well, by day two, I bought my own case of beer. So I became an alcoholic overnight. Yes, this is my point. The next morning I was drinking at 8 a.m. I've never done that in my entire life. However, I didn't have my drug of choice at hand, so I used whatever I could. So basically became an alcoholic overnight, mate. Like I was drinking 8 a.m. the next morning.
So the little glass being sort of handed around was in actual fact agitating you. It was kind of like, pass it over here, give me my turn, and bring me a proper glass.
I remember. It was quite. They do this thing. It's a bit of a bonding thing, I think. And what they do is they pour the glass. It's a small glass again, and they they say Tucky from memory. This is going back a long time ago. They go Tucky, and you drink it, and then goes to the next guy. And if there's 10 boys, like a bottle, you don't even go through one bottle of beer by the time you go through this glass. It's tiny. So they're drinking for the social aspect. Here's me not drinking for the social aspect. I want to get out of it. So, yeah, I did become agitated, and I just bought my own box of beer the next day, which wasn't easy either because I had no money, so I had to scam shit overseas, like in Fiji, amongst. It's not as easy to scam when you don't have all your connections and stuff over there. But I managed to get my box of beer, of course, and I started drinking the next morning heavily, to change the way I feel.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? And it's incredible how resourceful you could be. Once again, like you can just come up with money out of thin air.
I don't remember exactly how I did it, but there was some receipts involved. I don't know. But you'd be amazed. Like you could put me in a country town in the middle of nowhere where there's no drugs or alcohol, and I will find the only person in that town who has used drugs and alcohol, and we will track it down together. It's any addicts like that. You put us, we're never. Yeah, we're drawn to it. It's like I say it with a smile on my face, and I say it, and I'm lucky I can say it being down the track, but it's kind of like the addict and the alcoholic are very clever, mate. Like we always get what we need. Obviously, we have to do that for such a long time. Yeah, mate.
And how long were you in Fiji for?
Oh, it's another. So it wasn't long. It was like the heroin dependence had come out of me. I think 2 weeks later, it was horrible 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, I managed to get some cash in my bank account. I packed my shit, I booked an airplane, and I came back. And and this is another thing. I remember I left my bags. Now, I left most of my bags in Fiji, which was stupid, but I just couldn't be bothered. I just wanted to get to Cabramatta and get on, all right? And I'm in Fiji, so all I can think of is getting to Cabra, not the cross, because the cross was shit gear for me back then. I had to get to Cabra, so I left all my shit there. I grabbed a carry-on because I didn't want to fuck around at the airport. Grabbed a carry-on. I finally got through the whole process. I come out of the airport. I get in the cab. And I end up getting out of the cab at Cabra. I've only just got enough money to get on and get a cab, and I've left my bag even in the cab, which was a drama because that was my only precious stuff that I did have, but I lost it all just to
quickly jump out of the cab.
Yeah,
you just wanted out of the cab
to get on. Yeah, just that obsession and compulsion is so powerful, mate. Some people were able to be a little bit sensible, find himself a safe place to use. I could never do that. I was always out of control. I'd actually, I talked about using needles. Should I say this stuff?
Sure, yeah, of course. Of course.
It's quite heavy, mate. To get clean needles, it's not that hard actually, right? But depends what hour of the night it would be, but it takes time, right? And if I've got the gear I need to get on, so I would find myself even at times just using, even needles that I'd found on the ground at the back of the flats at Cabramatta, and luckily for me, I never got anything. I never contracted any serious illness as a result of that. But that's just I know. When I say that, I don't have shame when I say that. I get that was just my compulsion. I'd rinse it with water, but just putrid shit, mate. Because I couldn't. This is where I was going with. Because I couldn't wait to stop at the chemist, go in and purchase the fits. They call them fits, and then come back out. That'll take another 5 minutes. I was just in this. I had to use, So, and you know what? Back then, we're talking 2008. or maybe even a bit earlier. No, 2008. The flats, Cabramatta was just flooded with. You you probably know that, but like anywhere you go, you'd find needles. Like it was putrid, right?
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
How long were you on for again?
So yeah, good. All right, we should. God, I get lost in all this stuff. All right, so then I used again for about not long. So I'm back in Australia. I've done the Fiji Geographical. Didn't work. Fancy that. I became an alcoholic instead. And I used for another couple of weeks, and I landed myself. The seed had been planted. They say. We talk about that in Narcotics Anonymous, that the seed had been planted. And I knew there was a better way, you know. And so I think I found myself. Where did I go? Gorman House. No. I found myself back in detox. And then, who's? I found myself
Were you
back
drinking again when you were back in
No,
Australia, or you
no,
through that out
no,
because
yuck.
that? Yeah, okay.
No, definitely. I've never had a drink since Fiji, actually. I really am not, to go back to that, an alcoholic. I hate alcohol. It was putrid. But when I don't have a choice, I'll quickly consume it to change the way I feel. That's even more a description of how much of an addict I am, you know?
It makes much more sense that way, though, in terms of the moment there's a better option, which is obviously a vastly superior option in the experience you're looking for, it doesn't even register.
No, horrible. I mean, whatever. Look, alcohol is probably the worst drug of all, too, you know, ultimately. But I never had a drink again. I don't think, anyway. But yeah, I ended up with that. The seed had been planted. I knew there was a better way, and I knew I could do it. I had some idea that I can actually stop, because not only did I get off the methadone after such a long time, but I also got 22 days sobriety without using. So I had some evidence to show that, and that was certainly the longest I'd ever done. So I landed myself back in detox, and I went to a rehab in Lilyfield, in Roselle, called Who's, which is actually connected to that methadone rehab I did. It's the same rehab, but the section I went to this time I remember I was quite proud of myself. It was the one when you're not on the methadone, you're just just an addict, you know. I managed to stay there for 4 weeks, and I moved to another rehab, being Glebe House, which is actually where I finished my journey off. I landed myself back in rehab. I got 5.5 months up this time, right, from that time. So I come back from Fiji. Let me recap. I used for a couple more weeks, used and abused, and I remember it was a horrible 2 weeks. I landed back in detox and then rehab, and I managed to get 5.5 months sobriety up this time. Right? So we're in new ground completely.
5.5 months?
Yes, which was
Talk me through that.
I'm 5.5 months clean. I'm living in a halfway house by this time, so I've completed a 3 months rehab, and I'm living in Woolloomooloo. That wasn't a good idea. Woolloomooloo is just underneath King's Cross, right? And I thought, yeah, mad. I'm attended an A meeting on a Friday night. I remember this clearly. I thought life's good. I'm on my way home about 10:30 p.m. at night. Everything's perfect in my life. And I bump into someone who I used to use with, a girl that I used to use with in Woolloomooloo. And just like that, I threw everything away, and I said, let's go. I got in a cab with her, and we called a cab to Stanmore, and we got on. So I threw it all away because, the thing is, see what happened? Like, everything's good. I think everything's fine. I bumped into this chick, and just like that, I've chucked it all away, you know? what I discovered was there was a heap of things I wasn't doing in that 5.5 months, which I'd love to share with you in my
Please.
final recovery. So look, that happened. Okay, it was a bit of an eye opener for me. I honestly thought, and this is where I went wrong already, thinking that I had it. The minute you think you've got this, you've actually lost it. You know, the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous, right? You might know, everyone kind of knows a little bit about the 12 steps, but step 1 is we admitted we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives have become unmanageable, right? There's so much in that. So this is the only step you have to get right 100%. Otherwise, you don't have anything. But so the minute I think I've got this under control, that's when I think you're in trouble, So step 1 to me tells me that I'm powerless, and just for today, I will not pick up a drink or a drug, But back then, it was like I thought I had it. I'm going to be clean for the rest of my life. The minute that happens, mate, basically I was in a cab on my way to Stanmore to get on.
That almost talks about once you're confident that you've got a handle on it, is when it's actually slipping away. While you remain, I have to keep this front and center of mind every day. Like, just for today, I'm not. Just for today, I'm not. Once it becomes, I think I got this, it starts to get slippery.
Yeah, look, it is a little bit more complicated than that. But as soon as I heard you say that, the minute you think, I got this, yes, I agree 100%, you don't have it, The thing is, there's something, it's a real tricky one, and so many people battle with this, Like people in early days of recovery, this is my experience, that I see people get clean, and I've worked in treatment, as I've said now, for nearly 8 years. I see people get clean and confident and think they've got it all under control. Well, in my experience, they're the ones that are the closest to picking up again,
Yes.
It's the battler who's been honest, going on, fuck, I'm struggling, I'm anxious, I want to get on. He's the one almost more likely to stay clean. And I guess it comes back to that step 1 is acknowledging that I haven't got it. Anyway, that's only my own theory, but it's something I see every day, and I've certainly, and it's something I've never said this time, ever since that relapse at 5.5 months, which is nearly 10 years ago. I've never said I've got this. It's been one of my key things around step 1 is just for today. I can say for today I'm not going to use, but that's all I'll say,
Yeah.
I think that just keeps me a little bit on my toes and accountable,
Yeah. So 5.5 months, clean at that point. Is that the right word? Clean?
For me, being addict, clean, alcoholic, sober, whatever, okay. Clean and sober.
So got 5.5 months. That means there's another bust at that point.
Yep. Yeah. Relapse would be another.
Relapse. Yes. Or is it okay to even say lapse rather than relapse, or was it a relapse this time?
Yeah, cool. No, it was a relapse. I went on with it again. I guess it's a funny word, but lapse would be if you used once and you got back and you didn't pick up again. Relapse would be more than once,
Yeah.
What happened with me that time? So busted. So I'm living in a halfway house. People think I'm a good bloke. I'm 5.5 months clean. And I am a good guy at 5.5 months clean. My housemate, he's thinking, Danny's a good guy. He was horrified. The day I picked up, it quickly escalated that I didn't become such a good guy anymore. And he was telling the rehab, I've got to get me out of here, they've got to kick me out. Because the rehab kind of ran that halfway house that I was in. And the poor guy, Gavin, he got terrorized by me. It's like this animal comes out of me when I pick up the drugs, basically. When I say animal, I don't mean any physical abuse, but just bringing people home from all, from anywhere and up at 2 a.m. making a noise and just leaving mess everywhere. It was horrifying for him. I had to get out of the house. He made sure I got kicked out, which was the best thing that could have happened to me because I landed back in my last detox, thank God, which is Herbert Street Clinic in St. Leonard's, and I'll go into a bit of detail with that because I'm so grateful for that place. Yeah. And as it happened, my last detox, I took drugs in with me, which is so stupid, but this is the addict. Like, you go into detox to get clean, but you're taking drugs with you. You just can't. I've just got to have one more. But anyway, it was my last one, mate. I went through whatever I had, and they medicated me for a couple of days. And on the 15th of September 2009, I would have had or it would have been the 14th of September 2009, I would have had my last dose of buprenorphine, which was something they were giving to me to withdraw from the heroin. Just a small, it's methadone in a tablet, basically, right? Sure. They would have given me that, and mate, that was it. I started making phone calls. I landed myself in a program called Foundation House. That they're in Roselle. They're actually connected to the Who's rehab that I went to. When I say connected, they're on the same grounds. They're not connected. They're different rehabs. And mate, my recovery began. I went to that rehab hanging out, withdrawing for a few nights. You weren't allowed to have your mobile phone. I had my mobile phone. I was doing the wrong thing still, but somehow I managed to. I completed 28 days in that service. I started to smile a little bit. I guess I got a little bit of hope. I'd caused a bit of carnage in that last relapse that I was trying to fix up as well. Like, there was some debts I'd gotten myself into. I'd hurt some people. I think I robbed some people. And those people are in the fellowship. So the people I'm going to be seeing again, so I have to fix those relationships because I need to see those people. So it was difficult, mate, to hang in there, but I managed to get through that 28 days, and I went into another service called Glebe House, which is the place I've been working in now for the last 8 years, and I went to there. It must have been around the beginning of October 2009, and my journey of recovery really began there,
Wow.
So there's a heap of things they suggest you do. I always feel funny talking about NA or Narcotics Anonymous because that word anonymous, but I think it's fine. I'm sharing my story here, and in NA, so when I say NA, I'm talking about Narcotics Anonymous. They suggest you do a heap of things. Now, these things I'm about to tell you, I was not doing in that 5.5 months clean when I thought I had it. They suggest you get a sponsor. So a sponsor's like somebody else who's been through the program ahead of you, a mentor. They suggest that you find a higher power. When we say higher power, I'm not talking about religion of any kind. We're just talking about a power greater than myself. It could be the people in the rehab. It could be the other members of NA. It could be God. Whatever. For me, God worked. I was happy to talk to God. And when they say find a higher power, it's like we can't do this alone. So step 2 is finding a higher power. So meaning that we can't do this alone, right? So I had to believe in something bigger than me,
So obviously part of your ongoing recovery has been part of that has been the NA program.
Massive.
And in actual fact, throughout those other times as well. And
it was.
On this time, a little bit more of this stuff was sinking in and you're becoming more aware of it and from the application point of view, really engaging and it kind of sounds from what you've described is that kind of each time, maybe not in a linear sort of way, but each time you were doing a little bit more. You were doing a little bit
Yeah,
more,
it's true.
and went from
Yeah.
22 days to that 5.5 months, and now eight plus years. Always has been more than that now.
Yeah, nearly 10. Yeah.
Nearly 10. My apologies. So
That's okay,
coming
man.
up to 10 years.
Yeah.
So, what else have you done at a personal level to whether it's to remind yourself of one day at a time? Have you had to engage in other things? Is you helping others, helping you? Like, can you tell me about what has recovery meant for you?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, for sure. This is the stuff I love, Nesh. This is absolutely, this is the stuff that's kept me going. Okay, I'll finish that list. So, get a sponsor, find a higher power, connect with people. I hated people, mate, in the early days, and I've learned this now. I didn't hate people at all. I was just scared of people. I was scared of intimacy or connection. Okay. Anyway, get it, connect with people. Do meetings. So regular meetings, and most importantly was probably step work, which is we've got this book in the fellowships. It's a steps working guide. Basically, it's look, the 12 steps. You've heard of the 12 steps
Absolutely.
before, yeah. The way I explain them is they're just a set of instructions on how to live. It's the best way to describe it. And let me tell you, any human being, I believe, will benefit tenfold from the steps. Just remove addicted to alcohol or addicted to drugs, to replace it with whatever addiction you've got going on. It's going to benefit anyone. But what it does, it provided me with the ingredients and some instructions on how to live. And that was probably one of the biggest things, and something I still work on very regularly today too. And they also say that, like, I've been through the 12 steps, but they never end. So you go back to one, and step one you never, ever have, because the minute I think I got it, I lost it, like I said before. So,
do you still do meetings?
Oh, Nesh, I'm very active in my recovery, man. I'm actually on holidays from work from my full-time job as a rehab, and I've smashed I've done a meeting every day for the last 3 weeks almost, like every day. I love it, mate. It's the stuff where, like last night, I caught up with a friend who's down from Byron Bay. She told me she's visiting, so I said, all right, let's do a meeting. We went out for dinner afterwards. The night before, one of my sponsees, which I'll talk about that soon, he celebrated 2 years on that day. So I went to a meeting for him, and we went to dinner. I'm at dinner with the boys almost every night. I've got a good life, mate. So that's the stuff that keeps me going and keeps me passionate about recovery. It's about, I keep what I have by giving it away. That was one of the cliches and messages I heard in the fellowship. So, like, the only way I stay clean and sober is by sharing my knowledge with other people. And in sharing my knowledge with other people, I'm building connections, and that's the core of what really makes a difference, I think, so look, the night before I'd given, and I think the minute you're bragging about things you're doing well, you're missing the point as well. But the night before, I'd give someone a lift home to the other side of town who was in town, a bit lost, so I give him a ride home. That's just stuff that I do on a daily basis to maintain my recovery, and I believe it's the stuff I have to do, actually, to stay clean and maybe clean and serene. It's the serenity bit and the gratitude that I get from doing that stuff that really keeps me going. Look, my day, and this is an average day, is made up of, I'm at the gym first thing in the morning every day. I have Sundays off, right? Now, that's a bit of an addiction, I guess, but I don't do it. It doesn't interfere with my life because I do it before work or before an interview or before anything. So, and I think meditation is a big part of recovery too. And I believe my time at the gym in the mornings is my time where I sort of connect a little bit with myself. I'm kind of really in the present, because when I'm pushing hard and I'm training, I can't wander too much in my mind because I've got to focus on that. So it's definitely been something that gives me a lot a lot out of life. You know, the gym. Funny enough, it's that natural drug. You know, those natural endorphins, which is why I probably chased it so much. You know, because and then then I'll go to a meeting with my business at the moment, which I'd like to share a bit with you in a minute. I connect with my mates. I receive phone calls every day from sponsees. So a sponsee would be the opposite to my sponsor. So I mentor a bunch of boys, maybe in early recovery. Now I've got some really wonderful relationships with guys that ring me every day, you know, who we connect. They just tell me what's going on. And maybe they got some drama. I'll share my experience with that drama. And
That's incredible.
it's a busy, busy day, mate. My phone does not stop. Or like, actually, I just pushed a notification away then. But whatever. Like, I've got a really full life. Do you know, like,
Does
when
that
I was,
kind of work for you in that life is always, it seems like it's always been frantic, you know, I don't know if that's the right word, you know, busy, frantic, on the go, and excitable. You know, you come across like a guy who has a full life, you know, and so when you were using drugs, it was a full experience, and now you're having a full experience, just with a different path, one where, you know, when you're at the gym, you're going hard, you know, as a sponsor, you really go out and give it your all, and
absolutely.
you're there for your boys,
Yes.
to do the best by them, you know, when you're
Yes.
in your work, and obviously we'll talk about your business in a moment, and
Yeah.
the rehab work that you do as well.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
in it. You know, there's no like 20%, or, you know, I'm 70%. You're at 100. It seems.
I am absolutely at 100%. I say this often, I've been brainwashed by Narcotics Anonymous, right? And 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 my brain needed washing for starters, right? So, and what that also means is I've taken on these beliefs, and I've really pursued it to the best of my ability, my entire recovery, actually. And there's so much actually to be said for that. And I only say that sounds a little bit egotistical, but I only say that because I see people fall off so often daily because they're not willing to go that extra mile. And maybe that's part of their journey. I was in that part, 10 years ago as well, as we mentioned before. It's all kind of, it's been gradual steps each time. But yeah, it is all or nothing. Totally. Do you know what, Nesh, right? I have not spent one single day the last 10 years alone. So something like mental health has a big impact on this, but isolation. So they say an addict, if you're at home, you're at home with the killer, like being you're at home, or an addict alone is in bad company. So isolation is not a good place to be when you're in your head, and because what happens is we ruminate on the past, and although I haven't wanted to use for a long, long time, but yeah. So my point was, I haven't spent one day this last 10 years alone. I haven't locked myself inside the house without going out there. Not one day. And mate, my default mode for 13 years was to stay away from people. I hated connection with people. That included my family. I was the most uncomfortablest person. I wouldn't say the most. I was very uncomfortable around anyone, anytime. And it was because of shame, guilt. Mate, I used to go back home for Christmas, right? When I was in the early days of recovery. Imagine this. It used to make me sick. I would be on my way from the city back out west to my family's house. I've got this debt that I owe my family. Debt, like I'm their son, I'm their brother. I have to go back there for Christmas, for example, but I feel sick on my way there, right? I'm sitting around the table on Christmas Day with the neighbours, all of my family, my sister's family, and I've hurt and robbed every single person on that table. Let's say there's 15 people. I have directly impacted every single person on that table. And mate, it's one of the most traumatic things to ever go through, like sitting through that stuff, you know. And that shame and guilt, it took me years to realize had so much of an impact on me in the early days that I would be tired. Like, what would happen is I'd get on the train, let's say at Redfern, to head out there, and I'd just fall asleep. I'd go into this coma of and I used to think it was still just my body hasn't come well from being off the drugs, right? And then I'd get on the train to head back home. Maybe the next day, if I had to stay overnight, it was punishing. But if I didn't, and I'd wake up, like I'd be, yeah, I'm coming back. Like I'd be completely awake. And it took me years to realize, but that was the impacts of shame and guilt that had that massive physical feeling and impacted me so strongly, you know.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
Never heard it described
yeah,
that way. How you carry shame and guilt. You know that
yeah. It's a
you
physical feeling, mate. I used to yawn. That's where I used to think. As soon as I'd start thinking about family, and I've discovered this because I really know myself now, but I used to yawn when shame and guilt would come up. It's the first sign, mate. You know, and then my body would become heavy, lethargic. It's very, very powerful, mate. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that.
Tell me about the work that you do now. Tell me
Yeah,
about.
cool.
Sounds like there's a few hats that you wear. Some obviously rehab work that
Yeah,
you're a mentor or
yeah,
a sponsor,
yeah.
and I believe you've also kicked off your own business as well. I'd love to hear about all of those.
All right, cool. Let's get into that now. So, just a quick rundown. I started studying at about 2 years clean. I started studying community services. I left school in year eight too, Nesh. So what? But I had no education. You know, I wasn't a dumb kid, but I had no education. I started studying because I was working really hard the first 2 years of my recovery. Well, doing physical labouring work, and it was good. It was really good for me. I kept up my meeting attendance, mind you, but I was working hard, and I thought I want to maybe work with people now. If you remember, I also said I hated people, so
It's
um,
interesting, yeah, dichotomy.
yeah, like I always say that because I really did. Like, and I'll touch on it again. It was just fear, but I used to see people at coffee shops connecting and laughing. I used to just think, like, it used to make me feel so incredibly uncomfortable. Like, I used to do it because it's one of the suggested things that I mentioned earlier, but I used to hate it, you know. And anyway, I found myself 2 years down the track, um, wanting to study and maybe go into that whole field. So things had started to change by 2 years slightly. And I studied for about 4 years actually. But as it happened, when I started studying, um, the rehab that I went through said, "Do you want to come work here?" They needed it. Just it was just a miracle, but they needed someone to come and to do a shift. And as it happened, being the next resident, I knew how the place run. So I woke up in the staff room of on the other side of the wall on my third birthday, actually. So by the time I'd done a bit of study, I think I'd done a little bit of work placement at a couple of services. My first overnight shift at Glebe House was on my third birthday of sobriety. So, like, that was amazing. You know, I remember that day. That was like one of the biggest joys of my life. You know, like you got to imagine, like I'm in the staff room, which is a pretty awesome staff room, mind you. It's like a hotel room, and I've slept many nights there now, but it's hard to kind of explain. Like as a client, you used to see the staff room, you kind of weren't allowed in there, or maybe you go in there to do a urinalysis test using their bathroom, but to wake up on that side of the door was quite a euphoric feeling, you know. I became a good staff member. You know, we only got 4 staff members out my work. We were completely autonomous. We work alone. There's only one day there where there's more than one staff member together, but I run the service on my shift. So I work only 4 days a fortnight, but I do a 48-hour shift. I go in on a Saturday morning and I finish on Monday. And I go in on a Wednesday and I finish on Friday. So I live with the boys literally for 4 complete 24-hour cycles, which is a wonderful way to build connections with the guys. We eat dinner. I spend a lot of time connecting with the guys out the back. We've got a lot of ex-residents that come back to our service on a daily basis. So I've got some really wonderful relationships with these guys. But I always do have to put a bit of a hat on, or I've got to it's draining, man, because I do have to be some level of responsible, or appear responsible. I don't have to be fake at all, but there's always responsibility for me is just draining. Like it's I notice when I'm not at work, like when I finish a shift, I go home and I go into a coma for like half an hour, an hour. I have to have a rest. Like it's just I'm fine until the minute I walk out the door, something just goes like this. You need to sleep, Danny. But anyway, and I've been doing that now for like over 7 years at that service and built some wonderful relationships. And to go into my business side of things, right? I turned 5 years clean and sober. So in NA, we have milestones, right? It goes 30, 60, 90 days. They're all sort of little milestones. Then it goes 6 months, 12 months is the biggest milestone you can ever have. I think 1 year sobriety is just wonderful. Then the next big one is 5 years, so which is half a decade, of sobriety. So I turned 5 years clean and sober, and I was sitting in my office at work, on the opposite side again of that desk where I was once a client, and I was reflecting. I was full of gratitude, and I was thinking, I wonder what I was like back, when I entered the treatment center, in 2009. Like what was I thinking? How was I feeling? And for me, I'm a bit of a nostalgic guy. I like memories. And anyway, and I thought, what if I recorded a message to my future self for my 10th birthday? I thought, all right, I don't have it now, but I'd like to send myself a message for my next big milestone being 10, and I purchased a video camera, and I got the boss's permission, first of all, to purchase a video camera because I thought I could start doing this for all the boys in our service. Like they could have this gift of something that I really longed for, being able to capture their journey when they enter treatment. I've done a little bit of research around some questions that you might answer going into a time capsule. I looked up on the internet. There was plenty of stuff, and the questions were things like, like what's today's day? What idol do you have in your life at the moment? Do you know what you want in life? What would you say to your future self in the future? What goals do you have? Things like that. And I started this recording of myself. I had that piece of paper. I turned on the camera and I started recording a message to my future self, right, for 5 years time. And instantly, I just noticed this is the weirdest thing I've ever done. It's like when you hear it and experience, it's two different things. I've never actually sat down before a camera and spoken to myself in the future. It was quite a unique experience. And what I found when I was answering these questions, I actually got quite emotional too, because the last question, as I just mentioned, was, is there something you'd like to say to your future self? Straight away I thought about my mum, my dad, my family, and my son, and it instantly got me a bit teary, because especially thinking about mum and dad, like I remember thinking, I hope they're okay, in 5 years' time. It was quite an experience, and I also hoped I was okay. I've mentioned also that I've lost tens and tens of people dead to addiction along my recovery journey, and if I picked up, I'm definitely a big chance of dying myself. So one of the first things I said to my future self was, I hope you're okay, Danny. I hope you're still alive. And then my mum and my dad and my son, and my relationship with my son had been slow by this stage at 5 years clean. I was trying hard to build a relationship with him, but it's not it's not the easiest thing to do for me. I made a kind of commitment around about that time to put an alarm in my phone for 4 o'clock each day to ring him, and it started to remind me every day to ring him, and we've done really well. I speak to my son every day these days, and we've got a wonderful relationship. But my point is, I created this time capsule video to my future self, and what happened was, like I said, it was a wonderful experience. It was when I was verbalizing that stuff. It was quite therapeutic. I'd never talked about some of that stuff. I was able to express myself without any fear of judgment. No one else was around. It was almost like talking to a virtual counselor. And then I started to capture other clients coming through the service. I put it to the manager, is it okay if I give this to the other guys and I'll store it on the hard drive? I'll get their permission to store it on the hard drive, and I can give it back to them a couple of years down the track. And as it happens, I ended up capturing over 80 clients over the next 3.5 years, and received some really positive feedback. Like, the guys were loving it. So there was a couple that didn't. There's one question that I had to remove, actually, when it was about tell me about your loved ones. And I had some feedback from a couple of clients, and it's Mr. Negative feedback too, but like, I haven't got any loved ones, which is never true. We've always got loved ones, I think, but it triggered something in them, so I rephrased that question, tell me about your loved ones. But mostly I just received some really positive feedback from that stuff. And as a result, I went and travelled America a couple of years ago. I did a lot of NA fellowship throughout the entire of America. I did 18 states in a camper van with my mate. It was a trip of a lifetime, it was like, I think about America every single day since I've been back. It's been 2 years. I had the trip of a lifetime. We travelled from LA all the way down to Miami and then up to New York, and just doing NA. My goal always is fellowship first. Like, anything I put before my recovery, I'm going to lose, right? That's my mentality. So it was just following Narcotics Anonymous across the entire America. And in doing that, you can't imagine, I was connected. I've got a family of people wherever I go in the entire world who will just full hook me up and look after me, and just, so I had like tour guides in every single state, taking us out to dinner, giving us the experience. We were invited into people's homes. But one thing I discovered on that journey, I won't get off track with that, is that everyone over there is an entrepreneur of some type. Like, they all have to fund themselves. Their government doesn't look after their addict nowhere near as good as, Sydney, Australia, I can tell you that much. And I was quite inspired. People were doing some awesome stuff, and I got back to Australia, and I thought, you know what, I'm receiving some real positive feedback around this time capsule. What if I turn it into something that I can help people all over the world, and I found a web designer, and I had a chat with him. We had a meeting, and he put together this wonderful proposal. All my ideas were on paper now, and I just thought, this is amazing. This is exactly what I wanted. I bought a house in recovery too, actually. Like, I'm the first one in my entire family to buy a house. The only reason I throw that in is I had a bit of saving by this time, and I was able to get a loan. So I borrowed $50,000 actually to fund this project. Everyone in my life is saying, you're an idiot, Danny. Like, why would you just like take such a big risk? Like, I've got no research, no backing, no partners, other than this positive feedback I've received from people. I'm just thought, you know what? So what? This is my mentality, Nesh, and this is always my mentality. If I go broke, I'll just build myself up again. Like, so what? Like, I've done it for the last 10 years. Worst case scenario, if I go bankrupt, I lose my house, I'll just start again, mate. I'm actually quite capable in the world, and I know I can achieve anything I put my mind to these days. So anyway, I borrowed that money and I funded it. We've now developed this web platform called Encapsulator. We provide digital time capsules.
Encapsulator.
Encapsulator, yes.
Yeah,
So we
encapsulator.com.au, or is it?
No, thank you. It's encapsulator.io, which stands for either input, output, or Indian Ocean IO. It is.
Okay, encapsulator.io, just so everyone
Yes.
knows. Good.
Thanks, Nesh. We provide, I'll give you the pitch. We provide digital time capsules allowing individuals to reflect on your present moment and record your hopes, dreams, goals, and future aspirations into this secure time locked vault to be discovered at a later date. As I've mentioned, like when we verbalize our goals out loud, it's very beneficial. What I've found is that it helps to keep us motivated and also accountable. When we say something out loud, some of these boys have come back to me and said, Danny, can I watch my video? They want to see it early. And look, ultimately I say, look, it's your video, it's not mine. So you can do whatever you want. But what I found is people remembered the stuff they'd said, or they thought they remembered the stuff they said, and it sort of motivated to keep them back on, or keep them on track. That's what the business is. So we're now getting around to other rehab services. I'm trying to just implement it into other addicts and people in recovery's lives to be able to sort of capture, the essence of who they are and deliver that to their future self or loved ones.
Yeah, that's incredible. Can you tell me a bit of some stories about how those who've gone through the encapsulator process have experienced it, or loved ones that it may have helped, or how any stories that you might be able to share?
It's been 3.5 years since I began that project. Not the Encapsulator project, but my own video time capsule thing where I purchased the camera. And as I mentioned, I've recorded over 80 clients in that time coming through our service. And so being 3.5 years down the track, well, it's probably nearly 4 years now, I've actually been able to give maybe 5 or 6 of those videos back to guys who have reached 3 years sobriety.
Wow.
Yeah, which is very powerful. Yeah, and I've got some powerful testimonials to support that. But all right, here's what I've found. There's two
I'd love to see a recording of someone watching their own video, because that itself could also be incredibly powerful.
Yeah, it's something I'm working on. It's kind of like the last piece of the puzzle of my marketing stuff at the moment is that testimonial stuff. I was the first one to record a time capsule. I think I recorded mine back in 2015, which is June 2015, which is quite some time ago now. I look quite different. So one of the experiences, number one, is we look different. We think, and we also think, and this is the feedback I've got from the guys, they think they knew what they said in their time capsule. One fella recently who watched it said he came out there and I said, how'd you go, Lee? And he just kind of like had this look on his face. And it's taking him a while to process. Like he wasn't happy. I remember him thinking, because he looked, but then as he processed, he goes, that was just amazing. Like he reckons he looked really angry in his early days. He noticed this intense look in his face, and he was full of rage and anger and didn't have any faith and belief in himself, and as he sort of sat with it for a few minutes, he started saying, Danny, it was really powerful. I remember, I looked so different. That message to my future self gave him goosebumps, to hear that stuff too, So I was going to say, there's two types of people. There's a guy like me who wants to know what I was like back then. I'm a real nostalgic person. Part of my journey at Glebe House, and this is funny, it all ties together, is I started a photo wall at our when the boys walk into our office, on the right-hand side of the wall, there's a massive, like a 3 meter by 2 meter wall full of photos of ex-residents. And look, a lot of them are dead too, sadly. But the first thing people walk in the door is they look at that wall. People want to see something familiar, so they want to see people they know. And we're all connected, us addicts. Like whether we're from Melbourne, Sydney, you're always going to know someone on that wall, you know. So it's the first thing people do is they look at that wall. So I I used to take photos on my outings with the guys, and I'd print them and I'd stick them on the walls, and I did that for years. And we developed this amazing wall. Sometimes I put a message out on Facebook to the boys, and I'd say, any new photos you got, send them to me, and then I'll print up a big batch and I'll put them up on the wall. Christmas, I worked Christmas Day for many years, and I used to make a big pavlova, which I used to put a lot of passion into, and we'd have 20 of the boys around, so I'd have photos from things like that. And people would walk in, they'd look up there. Well, the wall got full. There was no more room for photos. So then I bought a digital photo frame. It's about that big, and I started uploading the new photos to that. And then Encapsulator was born. So there's something about me that's this nostalgic memory. I really want to give people, I want to share with people, I want to give people back something, you know? That's kind of what my whole recovery's been about, Nash. Whether it's the message of recovery, whether it's a smile, which I'm also very well known for, is people come up to me and just say how warm and welcoming, and that smile had an impact on them when they first entered the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous or what have you, you know, which is a beautiful thing that I do get. I receive that feedback often. I don't know what it is. I think I smile too much, you know, but anyway,
You've got a
it's
lot to
something
smile
good.
about.
I have, mate. I have. Totally. But yeah, okay, so the feedback I've had, I remember Johnny, he did not want to see his video. I said, Johnny, it's been 3 years, mate. I said, I would really like your feedback. He really didn't want to do it. I said, look, you don't have to. I put him on a bit of a guilt trip sort of thing. He said, you don't have to. But I said, that's fine, mate. Maybe next year you'll want to watch it. Well, he said, no, give it to me. Well, we opened Johnny's video. His one's 30 minutes. So straight away, I think, for someone who doesn't want to watch, you spend a lot of time in front of the camera. His video was 29 minutes, right? So I thought, this is going to take a while. I gave him my computer to watch it. And 30 minutes later, he came out and he was completely chuffed. Like, his spirits had completely changed. He thought he was going to view this horrible. He thought it was going to take him back to a place he didn't want to be, but in fact, it completely did the opposite. He came out of there feeling really proud of himself. You know, he'd set some goals in that early time that he had achieved. And yeah, he said, I don't know what I was so worried about, and he really, really enjoyed it. He wrote me out, you know, some kind words about his experience as well. And then you've got Jimmy. Jimmy's my favorite sponsee. Like, me and Jimmy have we've travelled to Bali, Thailand. Like, he's such a good example of recovery. I don't know why I get emotional right now. Like, this guy is just completely fucked 4.5 years ago. Like, he just a mess, like a complete mess. I've never met a mess quite as much as him. And he came up to me 4 years ago. He didn't actually. He had to get somebody else to come up to me at a meeting. I'd already said hello to him, so he knew me, because I say hello to everyone. But and he got somebody else. I remember this guy Dave, and Dave gave him a nudge, and he wanted him to ask me to be his sponsor, you know. And I said yes, of course, you know. And I give him some instructions or I suggested a few things that he'd do in the beginning. And anyway, one of those things I said was to ring me. Jimmy has rang me every single day since, you know. And in that process, we've built this amazing relationship, you know. And I've seen so much change in him. Jimmy is a machine. He's just like me. Like, he done all the suggested things, like he's worked through the entire 12 steps. There's 463 questions in this book, Steps Working Guide, that assist you to go through the steps. Me and him. So what happens is you write on one step and we catch up and we share the responses. And anyway, through that, we've built this amazing relationship, right? Obviously. And we've traveled over to conventions, NA conventions overseas. That guy had never got out of, 5 kilometers from where he used to use. Like, he'd never done nothing. He started using drugs like when he was 12, 10, with his mum, started smoking pot. And she used to let him smoke pot on weekends. Like, I won't go into his story. It's horrific, right? He watched his time capsule. He's Mr. Negative too. I call him like he's just celebrated 4 years clean. I call him Negative Jim, or it's hard to. I'm talking about this amazing inspiration of a guy, but he's also Mr. Negative too. Like, and he wasn't always like that. So he was quite passionate in the early days. He's just going through a negative phase at the moment, right? He's been caught up in this relationship dramas for the last 12 months, which he just will not let go of. And anyway, when he viewed his video, he was keen to watch it. But for him, right, and I can share openly about this because I know he wouldn't mind me sharing this, but for him, he was really passionate when he created the video, and he was right into recovery, okay? And, so when he watched his video, a couple of things was happening. Like, he was able to it was kind of a negative impact to have on him because he actually looked a bit better back then. He'd put on a bit of weight these days. And he was a lot more passionate in his video back then. So it kind of put him into a bit of a negative spin, which is Jimmy. But even so, it kind of made him think seriously about, what he wanted back then now, and it kind of has helped motivate him to get back on track.
Yeah.
And he's very grateful to have that experience, even if it is just to be able to look back at himself so full of life back then and loving recovery. And he's not at the moment. He's struggling because of this stupid woman. But sorry, not to his relationship with this woman, I should say.
Grief.
Yeah, but yeah, so it still had its positive impact in some way,
It's interesting hearing you talk about Jimmy in that, there's this space around. You used to have a partner in crime, and it's almost like you found a partner in recovery, to a point, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like
Sure.
you're so connected with Jimmy, and kind of like you're a bit protective, like.
Oh, totally, mate.
So
Yeah.
I can see a bit of fire in your belly about how much you want it to work out for Jimmy and for
Yeah.
for it to be better. But the encapsulator in some sense has done that. It's in psychology. So much of my job is to try and provide a mirror. So someone can see themselves.
Yeah, wow.
And
Yes.
in some sense, that's what I see the encapsulator process doing, is that it provides that opportunity to see yourself. I suppose not only go out and see yourself and talk to your future self, but then one day, as a future self, look back and see your younger self and see,
Exactly.
what were their thoughts, and what were their maybe shortcomings, or what were their positivities, and sometimes you don't want to see that, but I don't think that whether you want to see it or not is relevant. It's about being an opportunity to see it, because I think some really incredible things can come from that space, whether you like it in that instant thing or not. So
Yeah, great.
I
Thank
think
you,
what you
Nesh.
say is
You're
very
right.
powerful, because there is something therapeutically that I do in my work as a psychologist, that's similar to what you do. So I just think what you've come up with is sensational.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, look, I get it's both sides of the coin, isn't it? You know, there's a positive and a negative, which are almost both positive anyway. It just depends how you look at it. Being able to reflect back can help motivate you to get back on track, or even just provide you, like, and loved ones with this memory, if you choose to share it with them, of what we were like. Like, I'm capturing that, the true essence. For example, social media. I love social media. Social media is my, I'm all for Facebook. I'm not a big Instagrammer, but I'm all over LinkedIn. I absolutely love the way it connects us with people from all over the world whenever we want. But there is a level of, of course, I'm not able to really express the bad things that are going, or maybe not the bad things, but what we provide with Encapsulator is this something we've labeled a personal media platform. So the ability to use, so just to compare it like as a storage system, or maybe with Facebook, is it's very different, I guess. I get asked that question is, I could just do this on Facebook and memories come up, well, no, you can't, because on Facebook you're not going to be talking about some of this dear stuff to you, and the personal stuff that you are able to reflect on after answering our prompt questions, which I found on the website as well, which really assist to capture the best video possible and really capture the essence of who we are and allow us to share our feelings in this confidential space without fear of judgment. It's such a valuable tool, and that's been the feedback I've received.
Have you done any more videos to your future self since that first time?
Yeah, mate. Look, I've so one of the biggest ones. I'm doing a business journey over 5 years, right? So I launched Encapsulator. I think it was on the 15th of February this year. The platform became live and completely functional, and we're working on it every day. And the team of web developers behind me. There's also been, setting up accountants, lawyers to work out the terms and conditions, and the privacy has been one of the biggest things that's taken us a lot of work to make sure people's content is completely secure and confidential and unhackable to the best of our ability. We're using the latest and greatest in firewall and encryption technology to keep, your files secure.
This is such a powerful tool to be able to, because to be able to utilize, because it creates this reflection, that in doing it, I imagine that there's not only a cathartic sort of experience in doing it, but then there's also a reflection of, what do I want to be going out and saying? And it hits, I think it goes deep. I think it goes deep and fast. And that is a really powerful thing to be able to, provide. Tell me a little bit about your, your other hats. You're a busy man.
Like, far out. I've got this little girl in my life. This is a pretty awesome story. I'm obsessed with Amali. I've got this 2-year-old girl who calls me daddy. Now, my ex, her mum, Amber, we were together about 5 years ago, and anyway, we must have engaged again at some point about 3 years ago. Okay, and when I returned back from America, Amber was pregnant, right? The whole time, yeah, we know it's not my baby. And anyway, I get back from America, and Amali was just born. She was like 6 days clean. Me and Amber have always stayed good friends since our relationship that we were in, and I've gone around there to visit Amalia, right, and to meet this baby, which already meant a little bit to me because it's Amber's kid, and we're around there, and Amalia's got these big hands and big feet, and I've got big hands and big feet, and somehow Amber's convinced me that she could be mine, right? And then we're doing the mathematics and we're thinking, all right, maybe she was, like, maybe we had sex 9 months before, around about. I thought it was a bit longer, but I'm convinced. All of a sudden, I've got a daughter, and I truly believe that she must be, because she doesn't. She looks like me. And anyway, so I get a DNA test ordered because I need to know, right? And actually, just so you know, the reason me and Amber broke up was because she wanted kids and I didn't want another child. So it's quite a bizarre situation. That's literally why we broke up, is because I didn't want a daughter, or a kid. But all of a sudden, Amalia is here, and she's got my features, and we're thinking, oh my God, Amber convinced me that she was mine, right? So I've ordered a DNA test. That took 3 weeks to come back. So in the next 3 weeks, I've gone from never wanting any more kids to having one, and this bond was generated instantly. Like, I was around there almost every day. She lived out Windsor too, so I was driving. Anyway, I was helping her out as a new mum, and I also thought that Amalia could be my daughter. It took 3 weeks, and by this time, I'm in love, like, with the kids. I thought she was mine, and I got the DNA results back, and it was like 7 million to 1 that she's not mine, right? So, it's almost like, this is really weird, but this is almost like the gift of a lifetime. So I've now got a daughter who isn't mine, but she is mine, kind of thing. It's hard to explain. And anyway, I've been there every single day since for her. So, yeah, she's just turned 2. She thinks I'm her dad. Her dad, by the way, isn't around at all. He doesn't want nothing to do with her. And I've just taken on, what do you call it? Like, I've taken on the role of her father. I'm not a stepdad because I'm not with the mum, and I haven't been since. I'm just, what is it, fraternal, maternal, some father? Anyway, that's me.
What does she call you?
Who, the kid?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
daddy? She calls me daddy. Yes, I'm a dad. That's right. Good. So she absolutely thinks I'm her. I don't know. She's 2, but I'm the only one that, I speak to her every single day, at least through FaceTime, like every day. Her poor mum, I'm ringing her at 7 a.m. I'm obsessed with that little kid, And not only that, she stays with me 2 nights a week overnight. I've become a full-time dad. It's not really part-time because I'm connected with her like, after this, I'll go to the gym and then I'll go and see Amalia, So I've got this beautiful little girl in my life who I missed out on that stuff with my son. And do you know what? Like the first 10 years of my son's life, first 8 years of my son's life, I was just in addiction. And in fact, really almost the first 13 years or so, it's taken me, only been the last 5 years that I've really been able to put myself out there and build a relationship with him, But, yeah, sorry, we can say something?
No, please go on.
But this different things happen with Amalia. It's like I've experienced the most joy I've ever had, like with this little kid. It's like I heard about this stuff for years, even in recovery. Like, I hear mums talking about their children, and I always used to think, especially if they were in early days of recovery, I used to think, and it's a dangerous thing in the early days, putting all our attention on our kids, because like I said before, anything you put before your recovery, you're going to lose. And often people think they're doing it for their kids, but if you're doing it for your kids, you might be back again trying to do it again, So anyway, I've just experienced this relationship with Amalia like no relationship I've ever had, Like it's quite unique. Like I literally spend a lot of time with her, and she's not even my kid by blood, but she's just my friend's kid, and I've just become the dad, So yeah, there's that hat.
It's a remarkable story. With your son, obviously you're in a very different headspace and different context and situation. How have you gone about, repairing and building a new, relationship with your son? How have you gone about doing that? How's it been? was there resistance from him? Can you talk about that if that's okay?
Yeah, for sure. You know what? I'm lucky. There wasn't resistance. I'm sure there is some type of resistance, but he's always. It's been difficult actually. Like it's hard. It's really hard to explain this, Nesh, because I don't know. Let me try to explain it like this. I'm quite a self-obsessed, uncomfortable guy, which is I've mentioned many times already through this. All right. So when I say that, what it is intimacy that freaks me out. All right. In all my relationships, like it takes me a long time to really bond with someone. Like Jimmy, for example, I've spoken to him every single day. To have this relationship I've got with him, it's every single day and in depth. But with my son, the first few years of my recovery, he was still quite young. Where am I going? It's been really difficult, man. It's been very challenging. And when I say challenging, I've just got to get out of the way. It's me in the way of it. Like he's just a kid. He does have a mum who who's pretty. She's got a really good relationship with him, and then he's got my mum who he's lived with the last 18 years as well. My mum took over custody of my son. I think about 12 months into him being born. I was locked up. His mum was probably locked up, and they went through the family court, and my mum got custody of him. And my mum is beautiful and wonderful, and thank God. But so it's almost like I justified, like he's got a mad relationship with my mum. He didn't need me so much. So lucky in the early days of my recovery, I was able to focus on me. But as I got, cleaner and more responsible, like I said, I started off, I put an alarm in my phone to call him every day at 4:00. And that alarm's been on my phone now for probably 5 years, and it's still there. I don't need it. On my car, for example, on my dashboard, I've got 6 numbers there with photos. What do you call it? Your favorites list that comes up on my car. So each day, that's kind of like my alarm now. I call every person on that favorites list every single day. It's one of my little goals, and it actually really relates to recovery. It's about that connection stuff. Like my default position is just ignore everyone. Not that I ever do that, but it's easier for me just to ignore everyone, watch Netflix and do nothing, but I won't allow that to happen. So yeah, I call him every day. We've travelled. I took him to New Zealand. Must be about 4 years ago. We went on our first trip alone away. When I say alone, I used to have him overnight or what have you, but we went away, which was quite a responsibility for me, Went to Rotorua and I did Narcotics Anonymous there, of course, like I do everywhere I go. And I took him along with me, and we went. It was a beautiful trip, actually. It was nice. It was the first time we kind of spent a week together non-stop. So that was the beginning of our bonding process. We've also been overseas to Bali on another holiday. Now he's 18, right? He's got his license. It's like it kind of has been stunned now because he doesn't need me to go driving him around picking him up anymore. He's got his own car, and he's got a girlfriend who he's always with. He's working, so now it's a different sort of relationship. Look, it's not the best. It's not what I wish it was. I missed a massive chunk of his life, and I reckon, and I'm sure, and I will keep working on this, but you can't get that back. That nurturing, bonding thing that happens from a baby to maybe a certain age, I don't know if you can ever replace that, because I see a different thing with Amalia. It's not a different sort of love, but it's a different connection. I spoke to him last night. I spoke to him yesterday a couple of times. I think I've seen him regularly. We've got a good relationship.
Yeah, it's
but,
lovely.
But it's not what I wish it was better, to be honest.
Sounds like you work on everything, really hard. That's in your nature. If you're going to do it, you do it well. So
yeah, thanks.
It sounds like he's incredibly blessed to have you as his father. You know,
He's blessed to have my mum, I reckon. Definitely. Like my mum's,
and her
she's a
too, of
machine.
course.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you see is next for Danny in the next 5 years? Have you given that much thought about what are we going to see from you?
That's a great question. I love that question. When I began my business journey 8 months ago, let's go back to that. I'm uneducated. I shouldn't say that because I'm not uneducated, but I had no idea what was in store for me, right? I have grown 1,000,000 times more this last 8 months than I have my entire recovery. Like, I've been attending, B&I meetings at the Shangri-La at 6:30 a.m. on a Wednesday. I've been invited. Yesterday I came from this massive event, Effect, where, there's a Dr. Jordan Ewan was sharing on the stage around artificial intelligence and how they're using this to connect human beings with people in the past, right? Which is almost like Encapsulator, right? It's almost so. What about this? Poor old Jordan comes off stage. There's 500 people watching him. This is what's going to happen in the next 5. This is my drive, right? I spotted Jordan coming off stage and I've tracked him down. I've gone up to him. He's got security around him. He's got film crew around him. And I've said, brother, would you mind just sharing 2 minutes of your time with me? I really would like to show you something, And I got him to engage in that time capsule process I just spoke about, where I got him to do a time capsule. I asked him those 2 questions. The reason I did that is he's a massive influencer for one thing, So any kind of coverage for me and help. Like, I've got no money left, Nesh. I'm at the bottom of the barrel, even though that's fine, but I'm trying to work out where do I go next with my business. It's still, but my marketing efforts so far have only been organic through my own ability, and like people like yourself help me exactly in this case. And I'm doing wonderful with that stuff. But the measures I go I'm connected with some of our biggest influencers in Sydney through the LinkedIn platform, like personally, almost on a daily basis. I'm talking. I'm going to mention 3 big ones for me, like Sally Illingsworth, who I've tracked her down and almost stalked her at like 5 or 6 events, right? But every event Sally has, I turn up. She goes, and we from day one we hit it off too, because I did the same thing to her as Jordan. Like, soon as she broke for a break, I went straight up to her and I got her to engage. And I tell them a little bit about my story as well. And there's some emotional connection with people when they hear a drug addict battler who's doing all right now or something like that, and everyone's affected by drug and alcohol in some capacity. You've got a family member, someone. So, yeah, so Sally, Ahmed, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. He's another massive influencer who I meet with, have coffee. Me and him have got a good relationship. We're in touch by phone. We've got a meeting next week. Them 2 are having an event next week or the week after that I'll be at, hijacking again. And then there's PJ, and then you've got some American influencers that I contact 20 people at least each day via audio message. I send people a message. I just love it, man. I just can't believe the position I'm in today. So it just keeps me going and driven. So my goals for the next 5 years is hard to say, but I learned this little tool called visualization, which you would know of 8 months ago. Someone I met in the early days of this business journey suggested it, and I watched this visualization YouTube clip over and over for 30 days, right? And what it said was for me to close my eyes and picture myself 5 years down the track. So when I say 5 years, I like that because I don't need to change shit yet, 5 years down the track, picture that you're successful, that I'm confident, that I'm closing deals, picture where my business is. And so I've done that, I still do that visualization thing, and it has worked absolutely so amazing. Like, every single thing I visualize I'm doing. I'm full of fear. I've mentioned it many times, right? I'm this scared little boy who gets up and just fronts up and has courage, and I use bravery every single day to just soldier forward. And in doing that, the growth has been enormous, you know. I love the journey. So 5 years time, who knows, man? At this rate, who knows where I could be in 5 years time, you know? Like being on podcasts like this, I got invited to my first podcast about 2 months ago by a fellow called Joshua Lee. He's over in California. And when he asked me, I thought, oh my God, how did I get this? And it's because I've just been sharing a little bit of content on LinkedIn, again around my story. Narcotics Anonymous has given me this knowledge and experience and instructions on how to live, like I mentioned, that people on the LinkedIn platform think that I'm some expert in something because I'm not at all an expert in anything, but, well, actually I'm an expert in staying sober a day at a time for the last 10 years. And that in turn has had a lot of grief, a lot of pain, a lot of happiness, a lot of edge. I've become an expert in my own life, and I just share my experiences, and through that, people are wanting to connect with me, and it's amazing, mate. You know, so I don't know, mate. 5 years
Danny,
time.
I think you truly are inspirational, and I think
Thanks,
contagious in demonstrating what's possible. I think
thank you.
you're a bulldog. You grab that bone and you don't let go.
I'm a Bulldog supporter, actually.
And and that level of persistence and determination in whatever you do, you do exceptionally well. And I'm sure that we'll be having many a conversation because there's many things to come. Before we finish up, how can people get in contact? If and especially if there's investors out there that want to help out, how can they get in contact? How can people, touch base with you?
Thanks, Nesh. So our website address is encapsulator.io. So it's encapsulator.io for Indian Ocean. And if that'll take you to our website. At the bottom of the website, there's my contact details. You can contact us also at admin@encapsulator.io. If you look up Danny A. Shannon on the LinkedIn platform,
A for Apple, Danny A. Shannon.
For Anthony, Yes. You'll find me under LinkedIn, and I'd please encourage anyone to connect with me. And if you could certainly let me know where you heard that from, it would be an honor. Also, I don't know LinkedIn I'm very active on the LinkedIn platform. I also can be found on Facebook too, just under Danny Shannon. If you type in Encapsulator, now that I've got that part of my branding out there, I think it all links to me, And look, I've recently had this wonderful profile video made of it's such an honor, Nesh, of my entire life, my journey, and the value that Encapsulator has to offer into this 6-minute clip. So I can be found on my YouTube channel as well under Encapsulator. So
brilliant.
Yeah.
Danny, real pleasure having you on the podcast. I know that a lot of our listeners will definitely have enjoyed this. So, thank you for your time, and I'm sure this won't be the last time either.
Yeah, I hope so, Nesh. And I think even since we first engaged, we have connected a couple of times, and I hope to keep building the relationships, man. And thank you very, very much, and for providing me with this opportunity, for one, to be able to share my story, but also for being such a wonderful listener and reflector too. I get your work you do. You're very good at it. I really feel that, and I appreciate, because like I said at the beginning, people don't often ask how I am, for one thing, in my work anyway, which is fine, of course. But I really appreciate you listening, mate. It gives me an opportunity to share part of my story that I don't often get to share. So thank you so much, and for this opportunity on podcast as well, mate.
My pleasure. It's been great speaking.
Good on you, Nesh. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to part 2 of the interview with Danny Shannon. I hope you found it enjoyable, and if you have, please, would love it if you could share the podcast and share the episode with people that you know. We're putting in a lot of work here behind the scenes in the podcast, and Nesh is still doing full-time clinical work, so he's seeing clients in and out session most days. And we're slotting in these podcast interviews where I'm able to free up a little bit of Nesh's calendar. So if you are enjoying it, please share it and help us spread the word.